Okay, good morning. You are welcome to today's edition of Teaching Strategies, a program where we come together as teachers to learn, grow, and thrive. Today we're going to talk about fostering intrinsic motivation in students, and we're going to base all our talk on the self-determination theory. The self-determination theory is an educational theory that is designed to help you know, understand your students' behavior and use that understanding to help them to become intrinsically motivated. We all know students that are intrinsically motivated. Students that are eager to learn, especially when you're not going to give them anything, especially when you're not going to praise them for it, especially when you're not going to give them gifts or something. These are the students that are looking to be engaged. In fact, they are excited and they're usually engaged. They pay attention just for the satisfaction that all of that brings. These are the kind of students that are not looking for approval. These are the kind of students that feel enough in their own way. These are the kind of students that are excited to be in class. These are the kind of students that are always ready and willing to exert themselves just for the purpose of exerting themselves. At times maybe because they like what can come out of it, but then it is usually because what comes out of it is pleasing to themselves, not necessarily to somebody else or something. Extrinsic motivation is all about the other person. It's all about external factors, but intrinsic motivation is about internal factors, and that's the difference. That's basically the difference between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. And you all know all of these students, you have them in your classes. Many of the students who are intrinsically motivated are very, very level-headed students, because somehow, somewhere, the thing with intrinsic motivation is that it builds the mind. When the person is not all about pleasing others, when the person is not all about collecting things so that they can do something, they tend to have a mind of their own. And because they have a mind of their own, their mind is built. They have a beautiful mind. They have a mind that is designed to do things that are important. So these are the kind of students that every teacher wants to have around. But of course, that's not the way things are. We usually have students who are extrinsically motivated, who somehow, somewhere, they expect you to praise them for everything. They expect you to give them things. They even expect their parents to bribe them so that they can read their book, and so on and so forth. So this session is basically about helping you see how the self-determination theory can help you or teach you how to foster intrinsic motivation. And I'd like to mention that the self-determination theory has been around for a long time. It's not a new theory, so you can just look it up. It's not a new theory anyway. This theory has been around. It was developed by Brian and Deci. So it has been around for a long time. They wrote a book called, I think, Self-Determination Theory. I think that was the title. And in that book, they mentioned the theory and some of the components and elements of the theory. You see, the self-determination theory posits that there are three elements that can help students to be intrinsically motivated. And they say those three elements are just autonomy, competence, and relatedness. When the student has autonomy, the student has a sense of self. The student has a sense of choice. The student has a belief that he is the captain of his ship. And as you are well aware, many of the students don't feel so. They feel like the government is against them, their parents is against them, even the teachers are against them, even their younger ones are against them. So many of the students who feel like everything and everyone is against them do not have, autonomy that the self-determination theory is talking about, and this can basically be why they do not, show intrinsic motivation. The self-determination theory asserts that for a person to have intrinsic motivation, this person must feel that he is the driver of his own boss, he is the captain of his own ship, that his life is in his hands. It's like saying the person has to have an internal locus of control. So if a person has an internal locus of control, if a person feels like his life is determined by what he puts in, not what other people put in. If a person knows that his effort, his personal efforts, and his personal choices can determine what happens to him, this person is likely to be intrinsically motivated because the person has seen, and the person has understood that he is in charge of his life. So one of those ways that the self-determination theory asserts that can help the students to be intrinsically motivated is by helping them to see in many ways that they are the driver of their boss, they are they are in charge of their life. Whatever happens to them in the future is because of what they did today or what they didn't do. So it's just as simple as that. Autonomy in self-determination theory is an element. It's an important element that generally is represented as a feeling of being in control of one's life. When students are in control, they tend to do more, they tend to be more engaged, they tend to be willing to ask questions because they know that the kind of questions they ask will determine how much they get to understand what it is you are teaching. And they'll be willing to engage with you and ask a question, and you will relate with you in a way that can help them do better. Now let's move on to the second element of the self-determination theory. The second element is what we call competence. You see, the person has competence. The person is looking to show that he has competence. That's the thing with competence. Just like they say, when an empty drum makes a lot of noise. But a drum that has something in it is not looking to make noise because there's something there. But at the same time, that content that is in that drum gives it some kind of power, gives it some kind of self-respect, gives it self-efficacy that can help that student to be intrinsically motivated. So many times when your students are competent, when they are able to do things, when you give them assignment and they do it relatively, okay, it tends to give them a sense of competence. So one of the things that we say you can do, in line with the self-determination theory, is to help your students see in many ways that they can be competent, that they can have, they can learn new things, they can be better than what they have. In fact, that the little things they know now can help them know more. So competence is a feeling of being able to do things, or a capacity to have growth and success. So the more you're able to get your students to see that they have the capacity to grow and succeed, because of what they already have, then it can foster intrinsic motivation. And lastly, we have relatedness. Relatedness is a connection with other people, a sense of belonging with people that matter. Many times students have this, they tend to feel that they don't belong, say in their classes, say in their family, say amongst their peers, and so on. But the more a student is able to feel that he belongs, that he has friends, that he's loved, that he can also love, that is part of a community, then the higher the chances that student will develop intrinsic motivation. So the self-determination theory is simple, and yet it can be broad. It's broader than all of this. It is broader than all of this. But the idea is that when we look at all three elements, and you put them together, one way or the other. At times, not even in the same proportion, you can help or foster, you can help your students and foster intrinsic motivation in these students. So now there's something I like you to know. As simple as all of these three elements are, there are some things we call character traits. Character traits that contribute to all three of these elements. There are character traits that contribute to a person's autonomy. There are character traits that contribute to a person's competence. There are character traits that contribute also to a person's relatedness or ability to connect or feel like they belong in a community. And those character traits can be where you start from. For instance, one of the character traits that can boost a student's autonomy is integrity. When a person has integrity, it is easy for the person to choose or to make choices because that integrity can make the choice easier. When a person has when a student has a lot of choices, when a student wants to make a choice as to who he is, when a student wants to decide what path he should take, when a student wants to decide how he's going to captain his ship, it is easier when the student has integrity. It is easier when the student has ability to make decisions. When the student has a basic understanding of decision making, it is easier when the student has basic understanding of goal setting. It is easier when a student has the ability to weigh things and to weigh matters without feeling discouraged and so on. So those are some of the character traits that we can start with that can ultimately get a student to have a higher level of autonomy and hence intrinsic motivation. We also have character traits of competence. One of those character traits that is very common is resilience. You see, a person can have all the competence in this world, but if he's not resilient, the moment he goes through a little setback, he just tunes out, and it's hard for him to come back to where he was before or even improve. Many of the times we find out that without resilience, even if a student is competent, he tends to forget about that competence and then focus on whatever setback or problem that he's currently facing. So we also have traits like what other traits, like growth mindset. When a person, which is of course very related to resilience, when a person has a growth mindset, he believes that his efforts can help him to become better. So when the student has the growth mindset, is likely to be able to use his competence in a way that can foster intrinsic motivation. So if you have students that have a fixed mindset, one of those ways you can help them is by getting them to convert that mindset into growth mindset. Now, the character traits in relatedness, because it is about people, because it's about connecting with people, because it is about being a member of a valued member of a community, we tend to want to teach them how to relate with people. We tend to focus on getting them to see why friends are important, getting them to see that a person needs to have empathy when dealing with friends. A person needs to have a sense of respect for other people. A person needs to have compassion. A person needs to have, communication skills and so on. So the more all of these character traits are present in a child's life, the more the chances that that child will use the relatedness to foster intrinsic motivation. So those character traits are very important, and those are the places where you will start. Especially if these students are young and they are just trying to learn about them. So these are where you can start, so that as soon as they begin to learn these traits or build these skills, develop these skills, they can over time pick up all the required traits that can foster autonomy, that can make them feel competent and can also get them to feel like they belong, you know, and they are valued, And also, as teachers, it's important to note that can contribute a lot to how a student uh, behaves or how motivated a student can get. You see, in the self-determination theory, a teacher's connection with a student is very, very important. The connection can help the students feel more, intrinsically motivated. At some point, even we understand that when a student likes a teacher, no matter how how you know how underdeveloped that student is in certain areas, he tends to, because of that teacher, do better because he's trying to make sure that the teacher feels they are happy about him. He's trying to make the teacher happy and trying to impress the teacher and so on. Of course, some of the time it may just be because of the teacher, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to the fact that that teacher can use that that interest that the student has in him or her to help that student to eventually become intrinsically motivated, so that over time the student won't feel the need to get another teacher to motivate him to do better, and so the teacher will over time learn how to be intrinsically motivated. Now, as you have been wondering, sometimes not all students value all three elements of the self-determination theory. Some students are more focused on the autonomy and competence. They want to be in charge of their life and they want to know that they're competent. That's enough for them. They don't want to have friends. They don't care for any teacher. Any teacher that is trying to get close to them, they're not concerned about it. In fact, your involvement with them, your connection with them will not even interest them that much. So there are instances like that where students can easily show that all three elements are not so important. But the idea is that somehow, somewhere, every student has a need to be intrinsically motivated, and you can use the self-determination theory to foster that intrinsic motivation. And it can be hard and it can be challenging because it just means that you have to incorporate self-determination theory into your lesson plans and all that. And that can be challenging because it can mean that you have to give students choices. You may have to provide choices for them. Maybe you feel that this particular student will feel more competent if he had these resources instead of this resource, or you feel more in charge of his life if he had this resource instead of that other resource, or you feel connected to you if you teach him this way instead of that way. So it can be challenging. It can be, it can be tiring. It can take a lot of resources, and that's why we suggest differentiated instruction, where we have different instruction for different groups of students. You can deal with a group of students with the same inclinations at the same time. You can foster autonomy in those students, and foster competence, you can foster relatedness in a similar manner. So this can be challenging, but using the presented instruction can make it easy for you. And also, you may need to go slow. You don't necessarily have to do three elements at the same time. At times, some teachers have this strength. Their connection with students is enough, is, of course, is sufficient at times to get students to be intrinsically motivated. So once you know your own what do I call it now? Your own strength, it's easier for you to focus on that and see how you can incorporate the other elements. But the idea is just that it can be so challenging and it is not always as simple as I have just narrated it. So it may take a while for you to be able to use all the elements in your class and in all the engagements that you have with your students. But just know that self-determination theory has been proven to work because it has over the years been used by teachers, and many of the times students have become intrinsically motivated. And you know, when a student is intrinsically motivated, they are more likely to love learning and become lifelong learners. And even after they've left your classes, after they've gone into the upper classes, they are more likely to still maintain that intrinsic motivation. And that motivation can keep them going for many, many years to come. And that's what we really want as teachers. We want to be able to shape the destiny of these students because you never can tell. It might be you. It might be your involvement in that student's life that can make all the difference in future. So let's see how, I encourage you to see how you can use the self-determination theory to foster intrinsic motivation in your students. My name is Asuni Abiola, and this is teaching strategies from the Sharzelos Center, Maya Ikorodu. If you have any questions, please send your questions to us, and we'll see how we can get back to you. And if you need any other resources, or if you want to suggest a topic that we should take up for the next for the coming teaching strategy session, please also reach out to us on our numbers. Our numbers are on the screen. So thank you, and thank you for coming.